This tutorial is designed to simply go through all of the custom command and telemetry options, all the data types, widget types, flow protocols for the different types of telemetry, so that one can have sort of an overview of all of the different combinations of things that one can do with the currently available properties. So we'll go into our custom command and telemetry configuration view, and we've dealt in a previous video with these test items that I had created to show the correlation between what we set up here and then what appears on the control panel. But now I'm going to go through the process of adding a new configuration, something, imagining that you've programmed some things to deal with commands and or telemetry on your microcontroller unit, and now you need to inform the Arxrobot system of what those do. So we'll hit the plus sign to open up our options for creating a new configuration, and you can see here that we have 7 options of data type basically, but also data type slash entry or widget format. In other words, the select option uses as its underlying data an unsigned byte, or a uint underscore 8t, and but the values are given meaning in the user interface by being associated with specific labels and are displayed as either radio buttons or a select list. But the actual data type is what we would call an unsigned byte in this context. And the heading and or separator option is a special case which is used only in the list of custom commands for providing a separator between groups of items and possibly adding a group label. So we will start with that to show, since it's the simplest option there is, it's added with a default name of new heading slash separator, and you'll notice that you can already see that its ID is 0 because it doesn't have any meaning on your MCU. You will not be communicating this code to and from your MCU. It's only useful as part of the user interface display. And if we go to our little pencil icon to edit it, we can give it a title that we choose by editing the text. We can add a tooltip if we wish by editing that field. And then we can choose which control modes we want it to show up in, remote control or client server or both. And these are they are not mutually exclusive. You can pick any and all of them, or if you're working on something and you're not ready to show it to the end user yet, you can leave them both turned off and it won't show up anywhere. Now the trick with the heading/separator type is that if you empty the label field, then it becomes purely a separator, and it will just have a separator line between groups of widgets in your user interface. If you put any text in the label, then you have a heading. So I'm going to delete that, so we're done with that one. And let's add a Boolean. A Boolean is simply something that can take two values, true or false, on or off, and we'll go into edit mode on that so you can see the options. It can have a label, must have a label, can have a tip, a tooltip. You can decide whether you want it to default to true or false, on or off. We'll set the default to on just to show we can here, and then you notice that we now have a choice of the flow protocol. On headings only show up on the command side, so it had no choice because it's only a command and telemetry state type object. Here we can choose from command and telemetry state or telemetry state only. If we pick telemetry state only, it won't be something the user can change, but it will reflect a state that you report from your MCU. Again, compatible control modes can be selected. So you notice there's no telemetry stream option here. Only command and telemetry state or telemetry state. There's no streaming version of telemetry for the Boolean entity. Now we'll select a excuse me, a select type of item, and it has a little different set of choices here because we not only have to edit the select commands label and control modes options, but we also have to create the value labels that will give it meaning in the user interface. So let's look at the entity command entity itself first. And here we again choose the label. I forgot to mention on all of these except for the heading, which always has an entity ID of 0. For any of these, when you hit new, it will default to the first available entity ID within the range we've set aside for custom command and telemetry. But you can change it to a different one if you wish. So if you've set it to a different value than what comes up here, which would often be the case, then that's where you change it. It sets its default value to one of the existing options, which we'll talk about in a moment, how to edit and add to those. Right now it's defaulting to new option 0, which is just its generic label on a new select entity. Again, we get to choose from flow protocol. Again, we have two options, command and telemetry state or telemetry state only. If we have a telemetry, if we are in the command and telemetry state mode, then you have a choice of widgets, radio buttons or select list. If it's telemetry only, then it will be displayed. There's only one way currently that we're displaying that on the user interface, and so there's no alternate widget option. And again, you pick a compatible control mode or control modes. Now let's go back and look at our option labels. Whatever you've set up your code to look for as permissible values for this item, you need to use those values here, and then, so say you have 3 values, 0, 1, and 2, you would need to create 3 options in here to reflect those and give them the label that they need, that each one needs to have. Again, tooltips are available, but that's all there is to do here. You give it a label and a tooltip and put the correct option ID number, which will be the value of the entity at that time. So if you have more than 2, obviously you just hit the plus and create another option until you have the number you need and have assigned them the values that they should have. Say these were not contiguous values, but maybe this one should be 0, 4, and maybe this one should be 0, 2. Whatever your code is going to be using, then that's what you configure it for here. I went back one step too far. I know the interface may be a little confusing that way. It even tricks me on occasion. No great loss. We'll just go back in there. There's only so many places I can stick buttons in here, and I might have to somehow come up with a better place for that one though. So let's go back up here and delete that example. And then we come to our 4 types that are purely numerically displayed integer values, and they only differ by the value range they have and the number of bytes that it takes to communicate them. If you need a numeric value that can fit within the range of a single byte, and what a single byte can denote, whether signed or unsigned, then pick that. It'll save a byte in transfer between your different components. If you need a larger range of values, you can go to 2 bytes. In either case, they can be unsigned or signed, and their various maximum and minimums naturally change depending on your choice. So if we go to a byte, again, you can change the command entity. You can give it whatever label you want, and if you want, you can give it a tooltip. You give it a default value, which obviously needs to be within its range of possible values. In this case, anything from -128 to +127. And you pick which flow protocol it's going to be in. And in this case, you can choose from all 3 possible flow protocols. One is the default command and telemetry state. You also have telemetry state, and you can also do a telemetry stream. In this case, what is ultimately designed to work with a graphing kind of, such as an oscilloscope tracing, that will provide a graph of how the values are changing over time. Works for something like an EKG tracing, for example. In all of these cases, you also need to inform the system of what you want it to display as the maximum value and a minimum value and the step value. All of these are available in all the flow protocol modes. What the additional thing you can change is if you want to have an alert condition alert the user if the values exceed certain thresholds. That's what the safe maximum and safe minimum are for. If you want to say that say we were using the maximum and minimum we see here, but you wanted to have an alert condition show up when it gets higher than 100 or say lower than minus 100, negative 100, then you would change the safe minimum and safe maximum appropriately to do that. If the safe maximum is equal to or greater than the maximum that you've selected, or the safe minimum is less than or equal to the minimum you selected, then those thresholds are ignored. And then you have a choice of widgets, in this case a slider or a stepper. That's in the command situation. In the case of a telemetry only, telemetry state, you can show a gauge or just a simple number box with the number changing. In the case of a telemetry stream, we ultimately probably will only have one method of displaying this, at least in the foreseeable future, and that will be some sort of graph. So you don't have a choice of widgets if you pick telemetry stream. Of course, as you can probably already know from our other tutorials, if you choose telemetry stream, then each of your data values needs to be accompanied by another 4 bytes, which represents an unsigned long integer, which is a timing stamp. So right now we have not implemented on the user interface a graphing widget. So currently it's just columns of numbers showing up to show that so that you can test whether your data is getting through with the correct values that you're expecting to come through. But we hope to add the appropriate widget soon. And at this time, there is no implementation of telemetry stream mode for the remote control interface. So you'll notice that here that button is grayed out because it's disabled. Your only option for telemetry stream mode is client server. And the other 3 integer types work similarly. We'll just show an unsigned byte, and you can see that the maximum and minimum default to the extremes of that numeric type. We don't have any negatives here, obviously, because this is unsigned. And otherwise, it works just the same. And if we create, for example, an unsigned short, then you have 2 bytes worth of range. And so your extremes now are 0 and 65535. Otherwise, again, it works the same. And just for completeness, we'll take a quick look at a signed short. And there, as you would expect, your range is from negative 32,768 to positive 32,767. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful in giving a better idea of the various combinations of data type and user interface widget that we support currently. Thanks for your attention.